Alright, this is being recorded so I can put it up in Google Classroom. Again, all you have to do is submit this before the test tomorrow. Can't have that on copyright infringement. Had that happen on the tube before. Alright, so again, this video will be up if you have any questions in that section. If you need me to go over anything, please let me know. Please take your AirPods out, put your phones away. Thank you. Alright. Secant beta equals 25 over 7. Draw a right triangle and find the remaining 5 trig functions. So, there's a right triangle. Secant is the inverse of cosine. So the cosine of theta equals 7 over 25. Am I showing knowledge just by doing that and nothing else? Absolutely. So there's my adjacent, which is 7. There is my hypotenuse, which is 25. At that point, to find the remaining side of the triangle, what theorem do I use? Pythagorean. This comes out to be 24. Alright? Sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent. We already have cosine is 7 over 25. Secant is 25 over 7. Sine we're going to throw up as 24 over 25, making cosecant 25 over 24. Any issues with either of those? All good? Alright, that leaves us with tangent, which is 24 over 7, and cotangent, which is 7 over 24. Recall that sine and cosine are always less than or equal to 1. Secant and cosecant are always greater than or equal to 1. And tangent and cotangent, one is always greater, one is always less. Everybody good? Alright, next up, given cosine theta equals square root of 5 over 9, draw a right triangle and find sine theta and tangent theta. Boom. Square root of 5 there, 9 there. Again, what theorem do I use to find the third side? Pythagorean. I'm going to subtract 9 squared is 81, square root of 5 squared is 5. 81 minus 5 is 76. Makes the opposite side 2, square root of 19. All good? The sine is opposite over hypotenuse, 2 root 19 over 9. I am good to go, because there's nothing to rationalize. Tangent is 2 root 19 over the square root of 5. And what do I multiply top and bottom by? Square root of 5, which will result in 2 square root of 95 over 5. Seem good? Alright, so find x in each of the following. We're looking for a side length. Hypotenuse is not involved. Which trig functions it got to be? Tangent. Tangent is 61 equals x over 8. Variables in the numerator, so I'm going to multiply the side length, which is 8, times the tangent is 61. And depending upon where they ask you to round to, x is about 14.4. Seem good? Alright. Next up. Now I do have the hypotenuse involved. Seems once again to be cosine. So cosine of 24 equals the adjacent, which is 4 root 2, over the hypotenuse, which is x. Now the variable's in the denominator, so we're going to divide. Side length, which is 4 root 2, divided by cosine 24. I would suggest you do it in steps. In other words, I would do 4 square root of 2, and then divide that by cosine of 24, but that is a personal preference, and that seems to be approximately 6.2 when I'm all said and done. If, by the way, you do not remember how to get to the square root button, you can certainly raise it to the 1/2. Raising it to the 1/2 from your vast study of algebra last year, rational exponents, is the same thing as doing the square root. So you can do that. Seem good? Okay. Alright, in the third one, we're finding an angle measure. It seems to be opposite over hypotenuse, which is sine. So the sine of x equals 9 over 10. What button are we then going to press first when doing this problem? Second, sine. And then we enter as a division problem, 9 divided by 10. And I believe we're going to end up with about 64.2 degrees when it's all said and done. All right. So that pretty much covers the first quiz. All right, the other part of it, which is going to make about 35-40%, is the word problems. All right, the diagonal of a rectangle, 14 centimeters in length, makes a 55-degree angle with the vertex. Find the perimeter of the rectangle, rounded to the nearest 10th place. So there's my rectangle. All right. This is 55 degrees. The diagonal is 14. I got to get x, which is that side, and y, which is that side. Doesn't need to be drawn to scale, and we'll show you later why it doesn't matter which side you get with which number. Alright, so x seems to be the opposite, so sine 55 equals x over 14. Cosine 55 equals y over 14. Any issues with either of those set up? In both cases, just like above, we're going to multiply. 14 sine 55 gives you approximately 11.5. 14 cosine 55 gives you about 8.0. And this is why the order in which you do it will not matter, because in both cases, if that's 8, this is also what? 8. And if that's 11.5, this is also what? 11.5. And you'll still get the same perimeter no matter where you put it. I believe we end up with a little number we like to call 39 centimeters. So again, the word problems on this are going to be basic ones from the packet, not the extraneous ones. Alright. Find the area of the following triangle rounded to the hundredth place. Remember that area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, where the base and height always make a right angle. So I'm focusing on that. I'm going to look at triangle ABC first, because ABC gives me an angle and a side length. Triangle ADC only gives me an angle, so I can't work with that yet. I want to get H, the height of the triangle. Hypotenuse is not involved, so it's got to be tangent. So the tangent of 50 degrees equals the opposite, which is the H, over the adjacent, which is 3.1. If you want to use that 40-degree angle, if that's better for you, feel free. Completely up to you. I'm then going to do 3.1 tangent 50, and I get about 3.7. Now I need to get this side length, which I'm going to call x. Once again, hypotenuse is not involved, so which trig functions it got to be? Tangent. Again, tangent 56, only because they gave it to me, equals x over the adjacent, which I found to be about 3.7, or you can just scroll up in your calculator. I do 3.7 tangent 56, and I get about 5.5. Brings me back to my equation. A equals 1/2 the base, which is 8.6, the height, which is 3.7. And then round it to the 8.6 times 3.7 divided by 2. I get 15.91 centimeters squared. Any issues with page 1? Alright. A handicap ramp is being built at a 4-degree angle of elevation to meet the state code. If the entrance to the building is 6.5 meters off the ground to the nearest 10th place, how long does the ramp need to be? Here's my 4 degrees. Here's my 6.5 meters. Now, depending upon how you interpret this, you could either think that is the length or that is the length. I would take either answer. Alright? To find x, it would be sine of 4 equals 6.5 over x. If I think I need to get y, and again, it's up to you, tangent of 4 equals 6.5 over y. Either case, I would end up dividing, so 6.5 divided by the sine of 4 gives me about 93.2. 6.5 divided by tangent of 4 is about 93 when you round, because the 9.5 would go up to 93. I would take either one as long as it works out. And you don't have to do both. An octagon is inscribed in a circle with a diameter of 8.34 centimeters. Find the length of the apothem to the nearest hundredth place. Alright. Your choice if you want to draw the circle or not, but it's not necessary. You just would have to remember that the circle of the radius and the circle of the polygon are exactly the same. So if the diameter is 8.34, to get its radius, we would divide by 2. Makes the radius 4.17. Good? So again, your choice on if you want to draw the circle or not. I'm going to come out here and draw myself a right triangle. I'm going to put the 4.17 here. And then I'm going to find this angle. That angle is 22.5 degrees. Everybody good with that angle and where it comes from? 360 divided by what? 2a, where a is the number of sides. Now, it's not asking for the area, it's only asking for the apothem, which is there. Alright? That seems to be the adjacent, so I go back to cosine. Cosine of 22.5 equals the adjacent, which is a, over the hypotenuse, which is 4.17. 4.17 cosine 22.5 tells me to round the nearest hundredth place, so I believe that gives me approximately 3.85. Good. A plane flying at an altitude of 6,000 feet begins to land with an angle of depression of 7 degrees. If the plane continues on this angle until it lands, what is the length in feet of the descent? Round to the units place. Please remember that angle of depression and angle of elevation by parallel lines is exactly the same. So you can take that 7 degrees and put it down there. Maybe more straightforward for you to see. The altitude is the height, so that's the 6,000 feet right there. And once again, I would accept either one of these. Because length and feet of its descent, it could be the horizontal, but I think it's more likely to be that one because it's a straight line distance. So if I get that one, it seems to be sine. So the sine of 7 degrees equals 6,000 over the hypotenuse. Once again, variables in the denominator, so I'm going to divide 6,000 divided by sine of 7. And if I round the nearest unit place, 49,233 feet. Everybody understands units is one place. If I did use the other one, it would be tangent instead of 6,000 divided by tangent 7, and it would come out to be about 48,866. Good. All right, 24-foot ladder is being used to get an injured squirrel out of a tree. If the squirrel lies on a branch 15 feet up, what angle does the ladder make? So there's my 24. 15 feet up is here. I'm looking for that angle. Seems to be opposite over hypotenuse, which seems to be sine. Sine of theta equals 15 over 24. I'm going to go to my calculator and do second sine. 15 divided by 24. Round to the nearest degree, 38.6 means theta is approximately 39 degrees. All right. Florence stands looking at a flagpole with an angle of elevation equal to 12 degrees. Joaquin stands between Florence and the flagpole looking at an angle of elevation of 18 degrees. 100% guaranteed this shows up on your quiz tomorrow. So this is the 12 degrees. This is the 18 degrees. Again, it's just giving us structure. Doesn't have to be drawn to scale. The flagpole stands 30 feet high. Now, unlike the packet, you're not going to have to find this distance by setting up a system. We're not going to do that. That was this one, right? All you basically have to realize is this distance is x, and that distance is y. So you can use just regular trig. So in other words, if I look at the 12 degrees, tangent of 12 degrees equals 30 over y, the entire length. Everybody see that? Tangent of 18 degrees equals 30 over x. Seem good? Okay, variables in the denominator, so I'm going to divide. 30 divided by tangent 12 is 141.1389033. I'll explain why I'm going all the way out in a second. 30 divided by tangent 18 is 92.33050612. You do not need to go out that far. All right? You can probably go out to the hundreds to the thousands place, and you'll be fine. All right? Now, this is 141.13. That's 92.3305. To get their distance, all I got to do is what math with those two numbers? Subtract. All right? So, I'm going to play with the calculator a little bit. I'm going to use the up to get back to that. Highlight it. I hit enter. Minus, and I'm going to use the up. Go back to that again. You do not need to do that. You can round to the thousands place and you'll be fine. And you get about that, 48.808. Now, Now, let's say you're facing this tomorrow on the test, and you give me 48.808. You're talking about losing a half a point by not being able to convert the 0.808 from feet into what? Inches. So if you don't know how to do this part, do that. You're showing me the trig, it's fine. To get the inches part in the rounded, all you're going to do is write down 48 feet. All you're going to do is write down 48 feet. You're then going to go back to your calculator, and you're going to get rid of the 48 by subtraction. So you're just going to go minus 48. That gives you that. And then how many inches in a foot? 12. You're just going to take that number and multiply it by 12, and you get 9.7. Is 9.7 closer to 9 or 10? So your final answer technically would be 48 feet, 10 inches. Rather than have you do dimensional analysis, I'd rather just do that. But again, if you write it as 48.808, you're talking about a half a point. And for those of you that didn't realize this after a quiz, if you lose half a point, and that's like an extra half, I don't include that in your grade. Because I'm turning it from the decimal. So it's the 48 feet no matter what. It's just easier for me when I convert it. So in other words, what I don't want you to do, what I don't want people to do, is take that number and just multiply by 12 and give me 500. That doesn't. I would rather you just left it in feet inches. So that gives you 586 inches. If you then want to convert that into feet inches, you can. That's easy. But what I don't want people to do is just write 586. I want it in feet inches. So that's, to me, the easiest way to do it. Like, if you said 586 inches, the answer line is going to say feet / inches. So you got to put in feet inches. Okay? And then finally, solving a triangle means find all the missing sides and angles. To find the missing side, I just have to use what theorem? Pythagorean. 6 squared minus 3.3 squared. The square root of that. That isn't what I wanted. 6 squared minus 3.3 squared raised to the 0.5 gives me approximately 5.01. It says round to the nearest tenth, so that would give me what? 5. Now to find the angles, I need to use trig at some point. If I want to find angle A, now that I have all three sides, I can use any of the trig functions I want. So if I want to use tangent of A, equals the opposite, which is 5, over the adjacent, which is 3.3. Second tangent, 5 divided by 3.3. Says round the nearest tenth, so this is 56.6 degrees. And then to get the missing angle, it is 33.4 degrees, because those two angles have to add up to 90, or all three angles have to add up to 90. In other words, when you solve a triangle, no matter what it gives you, you should have to use trig how many times? Once. Everything else can be done using the Pythagorean theorem, angle or angle sum of the triangle. Brittany, you have a question or no? You good? All right. I will have this up